Here are the latest updates from the Middle East. The Middle East moved closer to a long-feared regional war the day after Iran fired a barrage of missiles at Israel, and Israel said it began limited ground incursions into Lebanon, targeting the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia. Israel said it intercepted many of the missiles, and the officials in Washington said US destroyers assisted in Israel's defense. Iran said most of its missiles hit their targets. There were no immediate reports of casualties. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed late on Tuesday to retaliate against Iran, which he said made a big mistake tonight and it will pay for it. An Iranian commander threatened wider strikes on infrastructure if Israel retaliates against Iran's territory. The United Nations Security Council called an emergency meeting for Wednesday to address the spiraling conflict. Israel and Hezbollah have traded fire across the Lebanon border almost daily since October 8th and the day after Hamas's cross-border attack on October 7, 2023. Israel declared war on the militant group in the Gaza Strip in response, and more than 41,000 Palestinians have been killed in the territory, and just over half the dead have been women and children, according to the local health officials. Now, another big update: Israeli airstrikes on the southern Gaza killed 32 people, according to the Palestinian medics. The European hospital in the hard-hit city of Khan Yunis said it received the bodies after heavy Israeli airstrikes and ground operations in the city. It said the dead include women and children, and the dozens of people are wounded. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military regarding this. Israel has continued to strike what it says are militant targets across Gaza nearly a year after Hamas's attack. Even as the attention has shifted to Lebanon, where Israel is battling Hezbollah, and to Iran also, which launched a ballistic missile attack on Israel late Tuesday. The third major update is that Denmark police reported 2 explosions overnight near Israeli embassy in Copenhagen. In a post on X, the police said no one had been injured and an investigation was underway. Police had cordoned off the area while police with search dogs and forensic teams were inspecting the area. Addressing local media on Wednesday morning, police refused to give details about the intensity of the reported blasts or the damage they may have inflicted, and said it was too early to say if the explosion was aimed at the embassy. On Tuesday night, the area around the Israel embassy in Stockholm was also closed off after a loud bang was reported. Police later announced that findings from the scene indicated the embassy was hit by bullets. This is according to the TT news agency. Another major update is that the UK defense chief has said Britain's military helped Israel repel a missile attack from Iran. Writing on X, Defense Secretary John Healey said British forces played their part in the attempts to prevent further escalation in the Middle East. He did not give details of UK's involvement. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the UK supports Israel's right to defense and stated that Iran has menaced the Middle East for far too long. In a televised statement after the missile attack on Tuesday night, Starmer said Iran's missile attack had left the region on the brink and he was deeply concerned about the risk of the miscalculation. Starmer said he spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Tuesday as part of efforts to prevent a wider conflict. Starmer's office said he was on the phone with Netanyahu when the Iranian attack began. Another big update: China's official Xinhua news agency said 146 Chinese nationals and 5 members of their families arrived in Beijing on Wednesday after being evacuated from Lebanon on a charter flight. The report said that all Chinese citizens who wanted to evacuate have left the country, while the Chinese embassy in Lebanon will continue with its duties. Moving on to the next update, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned Iran's missile attack on Israel and called for de-escalation. He said, "We are very concerned about Iran's actions, which is why we condemn them." he told the reporters in Melbourne on Wednesday. He said, "It is a good thing that it would appear that the defense of Israel, supported by the United States, has ensured that there is no loss of civilian life, it would appear at this stage. There's been too much loss of life in that region." Albanese said Israel had the right to defend itself. He said, "What we have called for consistently is for a de-escalation in the region, along with our friends in the United States and other." Moving on to the next update, Yemen's two main ports remain operational following Israeli airstrikes, but the strikes damaged power stations. This is according to the United Nations. UN spokesman said on Tuesday that the UN humanitarian coordinator in Yemen went to assess the situation at Yemen's main port of Hodeidah and a nearby port of Ras Issa following Sunday's Israeli strikes targeting sites used by Houthi rebels in the ports in western Yemen. Israel said it was retaliating for a Houthi missile fired at central Israel on Saturday, which was shot down. The Houthis said it was aimed at Ben Gurion Airport, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plane had just arrived from New York, where he addressed the annual meeting of world leaders at the United Nations. So these were the big updates, but we are keeping an eye on the Middle East for you. Do keep watching India Today Digital.